Hi, and welcome to Teacher Use Microsoft Excel tutorial for PCs, Part 3. In the last two sections of this video series, we initially took a look at our data and made sure that it was set up properly. We added any columns and additional information that we wanted to use to break down our data. In Part 2, we then used filters to narrow down our data and formulas to summarize that student achievement data. Now that we're in Part 3, we're going to be taking a look at how to share that data with others, and we're going to walk through how to create charts. So our two objectives for this section, number one, teachers will be able to select and manipulate appropriate data that they would like displayed in a chart. And number two, teachers will be able to create and format charts to most appropriately display selected data. So in order to get there, we're going to start by looking at our data, and again we're going to refer back to data A, B, and C that we've used in Parts 1 and Part 2. We're then going to select and manipulate that data, and lastly we're going to begin creating charts. So the first thing we did is we used filters to narrow down our data. We used formulas to summarize our data. We're now going to take that summarized data and we're going to move it to a separate spreadsheet to get ready to present and share it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up sample data A to begin creating charts. And when I open this up, I see all the work that we've done before. We hid some of our columns at the beginning to make it a little bit cleaner and easier to work with. We then added columns over here, sex and race. We moved our column headers down 2 rows in order to make sure it was right on top of our data so that the filters worked properly. We added filters to then figure out our student averages for male and female data. So the last step is to figure out how do we present this data in a visual way to others, and we're going to do that by creating a chart. So we do have two options, and this last step, moving this data to a fresh spreadsheet, is optional. You can actually insert a chart into this spreadsheet. However, in most cases, the spreadsheet with your student data is the one that you've used to collect data throughout the year. And now we're beginning to look at how we're presenting our data to others. So it makes the most sense to move it to a fresh spreadsheet. So I'm going to highlight the summarized data that we've collected. I'm going to copy that data. And then I'm going to create a new spreadsheet. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paste that data up here at the top. Okay? Now it's pretty clear to Excel what information we want to be displayed in a chart. If we look back at our original spreadsheet, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of words, a lot of information in this spreadsheet. So Excel doesn't know exactly what you want to appear in that chart until you tell it specifically by highlighting that information. So it is possible to do it here in this chart, and I'm going to show you that in data B, but for now, we're going to make it really easy and put it into a fresh spreadsheet where the only information that we have are the student achievement averages for our male and female students. Now I still need to highlight these before creating the chart. I'm now telling Excel specifically what information I want to appear in my chart. Okay. Once I've highlighted that, I'm going to head up here to the menu bar. We used data previously and looked at filters. Now we're going to go over here to insert. And when I click on insert, I see a lot of options of things that I can insert into my spreadsheet. We have tables, illustrations, and then the third option here are charts. And this is what we want to look at. You see here that there are a lot of different chart options that Excel presents. We're going to be working with two main charts. The first one is a column chart. And column charts are used to compare values across categories. And this is great when you have 2 or more things you want to compare to each other directly right next to each other. Okay, so that's the one we're going to be using for this example. As we look at our next 2 sets of data, we are going to explore line charts as well. But for now, we're just going to start with columns. So I'm going to click on column. I now see I have a lot of different options for columns. The majority of this is just formatting. How exactly do I want my columns to appear? At the top, I have my most simple columns. At the bottom, I have, as I move down, I have 3D columns, I have cylinders, I have cones, I have pyramids. You can play around with all of these. As you see, it'll take about 30 seconds to create a chart and insert it. So if you've created it and you think that it's not exactly what you want, you can easily delete it, head back, and create another one. So I'm going to start with the most simple column comparison. Okay? And as soon as I click on column, it pops it up and it inserts a graph right here. Okay? Now this is pretty simple. You see now that our next options are to design and format the layout of this chart. Okay? Automatically we see we have different color options. You can click on these and change the color depending on how you want it to appear. You also have layout, and this shows us a whole bunch of different options, including labels, which is where I'm going to start because this is one of the biggest things you're going to want to think about. First, we can start with a chart title, and it's going to give us several options for how we want that title to appear. We have no title, which is where we're at right now, a centered overlay title, or above chart. So if I do centered overlay, it's going to look like that. If I do above the chart, it moves the chart down a little bit, and the title appears a little bit higher. Once you've inserted that, you then can click on it just like you would in a Word document and change it. So I'm just going to make up a title here, Student Achievement Data. I now have a chart title. Okay. Down here, I see that they've labeled them male and female. They've done this automatically because the information that I highlighted said male and female. So they then made the connection that male is 78%, female is 71%. Series 1 over here is unnecessary, so you can click on it and just delete, and that will spread the chart out a little bit more. Now you'll notice we don't have a label on our y-axis, so when I go back here to layout, next to chart title, I also have the option for axis titles. And we have the horizontal axis title and the vertical. You can still add a horizontal axis title onto this chart. However, it already says male and female, so it's pretty self-explanatory for anyone viewing your chart. However, the vertical axis title isn't quite as obvious. And you can choose to do any of the above. Again, it gives you multiple options. Rotated title is going to go sideways. We're going to call this Student Mastery. Again, what could be helpful to put here is it's pretty obvious to someone viewing it. The title of the chart is Student Achievement Data, and we have percentages here along the vertical axis. However, we don't know what assessment this is, so it could be helpful to label these percentages student mastery of what? This is the student achievement data for the end of grade test, for the state test. For your final assessment, it could be really helpful to indicate what these numbers mean and what assessment it is that this is showing information for. Okay. There's a lot more things that you can play around with here. This is the most basic student achievement chart that you could create using the data that we've collected. And the last thing that I want to show you is how you can move this from Excel to a Word document. Here we're viewing it alongside our data. However, in many cases you're going to be creating a report or a presentation, and you might want to insert this this chart into either a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, and that's very simple to do. All you need to do is click on the chart. When you right click, you'll have the option to copy. And we're going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Word. As you can see, I'm not completely familiar with PCs as I normally work on a Mac. Once that opens up, all we're going to do, just like we copy and pasted the data into the new spreadsheet, we've now copied the chart. I'm going to right-click in Word and select Paste. And that chart is going to copy over right from Excel to a Microsoft Word document. It will also work identically in a PowerPoint presentation. Okay? So I'm going to close that out. I'm not going to save our changes to this.